guys, and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz.
I'm Hunter.
And I'm Sarah.
And I just realized we were wearing the same outfit, but that's okay, because today we are going to teach you guys some really simple principles that I picked up back in my Econ 101 classes in college almost a decade ago.
These principles definitely sound pretty obvious, maybe, at first, but have a big impact on how we run our wedding and portrait photography business to this day.
So back in the day, when I was getting my undergrad degree at the University of Virginia, I took a couple of econ classes. Shout out Professors Kopic and Elzinga. But I took these classes kind of just for the heck of it. I was an engineering student, but was like sort of considering an econ minor. So anyway, took intro to macro and microeconomics.
And while Hunter dropped the idea of an econ minor not long after getting past the introductory courses, some of what he learned as a college student still affects how we run and understand our business.
So today we are going to teach you guys 3 very basic principles of economics that I picked up in those classes. But we're not just talking about them because we think they're like interesting, which is good because we find most of economics like somewhat interesting.
We're huge nerds.
Yes.
The 3 principles are not only foundational to economics, but they have also helped us look at the world around us as business owners and explains why our clients sometimes behave the way that they do.
And at the end, if you stick around all the way until the end, you'll also learn about how these affect our pricing. So the first econ principle that we want to talk about seems somewhat simple, but is really at the core of how modern day economics are understood. And it's this principle: trade creates value. So in other words, no one would ever buy or sell or trade. Really, buying and selling is just trading money for goods and services. But no one would trade anything if they thought that they were going to be worse off afterwards than they were before.
Yeah, this means that every time someone buys or sells something, whether it's a pair of pants or your services as a family photographer, both parties are benefiting from the trade. If they didn't, they wouldn't buy or sell the thing in the first place.
So as photographers, this means that every time we book a job, we are trading our time, and to a lesser degree, like our skill and our expertise, for money. We would rather have the money than, those couple of hours for the portrait session or that day for the wedding. And our clients would rather have the final images that we produce or the, print products, and to a lesser degree, the experience we give them. They would rather have that than the money that they pay us.
And this might all sound obvious, but here's where this helps us as business owners. As part of Hunter and I's client workflow, we meet over video chat for 45 minutes with every single couple who is considering us as their wedding photographer. After all, we are selling a high-ticket item that typically costs our clients between $7,000 and $10,000. So we are going to invest time and energy into basically every lead we get.
And more on that sales process, by the way, in a video up here if you'd like to learn more about that. But what inevitably happens with as much as a third of those couples that we meet with, we spend 45 minutes getting to know them. We really take those meetings seriously. We teach them about our photography services. We learn about them. Even after that, about a third of those couples will go on to hire someone else.
And we don't need to tell you that rejection hurts. It can feel so personal and make us question our value and our worth as photographers if we're not careful. But understanding this first economic principle tells us this. The couple decided that for them, hiring us would not have been worth the money that we ask for. That trade wouldn't have created value for both of us, so they went elsewhere.
We don't tell ourselves, man, we're not worth $8,000, or, oh, we're imposters, why are we even doing this? Or, man, we need to lower our prices, or we suck, or anything like that.
Instead, we just remind ourselves that for this particular couple, they found a different trade that they perceived would give them more value for their money, and that's okay.
So here's another second really important principle that affects a lot of our pricing strategy, and that is this: incentives affect behavior. And so this is another one that seems a little obvious at first, but has some really profound implications as you think about it.
But for starters, we all know that this principle makes sense intuitively. If you give someone a reward for doing something, they are more likely to do it. Likewise, if you threaten to penalize someone for doing something, they are less likely to do it.
But as photographers and as business owners, we sort of keep this principle in the back of our heads as we consider how to charge for things like credit card processing fees or travel weddings.
Here is a simple example. When people pay for their wedding coverage with a credit card, we owe a processing company like Stripe or PayPal 3% of what the couple pays us. So on an $8,000 wedding day, we lose almost $250 to fees. If we photographed 33 weddings in a year, we lose almost one entire wedding just to paying those fees.
But if our clients chose to pay with a different method, say, for example, mailing us a check, we would save those fees. We wouldn't owe anyone any fees. So the problem is for our client, it costs the same either way, and a credit card is usually a little bit more convenient, right? They have no incentive to pay with a check, and so most of them won't. But in order to fix this problem where we were losing, 3% of all of our income to processing fees, we created an incentive for them by adding a credit card processing fee to our invoices. So now they will actually save money if they choose to pay with one of those, non-feed options like paying with a check.
And you know what happened after we made that change? About half of our clients just paid that extra credit card processing fee, which eliminated that loss for us. And the other half decided to pay with a payment method that doesn't cost us anything. So because we understood the incentives for people, we were able to affect their behavior.
Now, for this third principle, again, we're going to oversimplify it a little bit, but very basically, the laws of supply and demand pretty much govern our entire economic world.
Really simply, the law of demand says that as the price of something goes up, demand for that item will go down. This should make sense to all of us as consumers. If the price of potatoes at the grocery store tripled overnight, people would probably buy fewer potatoes and maybe switch to rice or bread instead. Eventually, the price of potatoes would come down since no one is buying those potatoes.
Now, similarly, the law of supply says that as the price of something goes up, the supply of that item will also go up. And so, as business owners, this also should hopefully make sense to you intuitively. Let's say, for example, people were willing to pay 10 times as much per hour of coverage for a birthday party as they were for a wedding. Say that suddenly changed overnight, and that was the case. What do you think would happen? A lot of photographers would suddenly start offering birthday party coverage, right? Because they want to make more money. And so in this example, the quote, because the price of birthday party coverage went up, the quote, supply of birthday party coverage, or the number of photographers willing to shoot it, would increase. And as more and more people came in and started doing that coverage, eventually the price would come down because there are so many people willing to do it.
At its most basic level, supply and demand are what run any free market economy like what we have here in the US. Supply and demand teach us that for any product or service, whether it's wedding photography or dishwashers or an apartment, the amount of an item that's being created by companies and the desire for that item work in tandem to find the right price for that item.
Now again, this is all oversimplifying, even, basic intro level economics. But how does all this work? Let's think about two scenarios to give you a couple more examples. Now, in scenario A, there is not enough of something to meet demand. And so people really, really want this item, but there just isn't enough of it going around. Demand for the item is higher than supply. And so inevitably what will happen is some smart person who got their hands on that item will resell it to make a profit. And then the people who made the item in the first place are going to be like, guys, did you guys see this guy on eBay is selling our product for twice as much? Why don't we make more of it so we can make more money? And so they will start to make more of it, and eventually the supply will increase to meet that high demand.
In scenario B, there's too much of a product to go around. Demand for the product is lower than the supply of the product. It's just, sitting around on shelves, no one's buying it. So the company is eventually going to notice and stop making so much of that product. So in this case, supply decreases to meet demand. In both scenarios, no government agency had to tell businesses to meet demand. It was in their own economic interest, and that's why this almost always works.
Now, here's an example that should make supply and demand a little bit more clear. Let's say that Sarah and I begin selling TVs, but not just any TV. We have invented this crazy new technology that makes TVs super sharp, and you can watch 3D TV without glasses or something. I don't know, whatever. We invent some new TV, and it's really cool, right? And so because they are super awesome and super new, we sell them at a premium for, in this example, $1,000 each. Now, since demand is super high for these TVs, they're selling like crazy at that price, and because we are the only people who know how to make this cool new TV technology, every TV of this type in our town is being sold by us. We have 100% of the market for those TVs.
Now suddenly, our neighbor realizes that we're making a ton of money selling these new TVs, so she invents a very similar technology and starts selling a competing product. Because she also wants to make lots of money, but is selling an identical product, she starts selling them for $900 each. And since people who want these TVs can't tell the difference between the two, they start buying from her because they're getting the same thing for $900 rather than $1,000.
So we're like, oh crap, we're not selling TVs anymore because our neighbor is selling them for $100 cheaper. But we want to keep selling TVs. And so we have an incentive to go ahead and lower the price and meet that price of $900, right? We don't want to go too low because then we won't make any money. But now us and our neighbor are both selling identical products for the same price at $900. And so we're probably going to share the market about 50-50. We're each selling half of these, new fancy whatever TVs in our town. And so if you think about what happened, at first, the demand for the product was higher than the supply, and so we had a lot of power over what to charge, but then eventually someone else entered the market, supply met demand, price came down in the process. That's just an example of how supply and demand sort of work together to find the, quote, right price for an item in a given market.
Now, how is this relevant to a photographer's site?
The question you've been waiting this entire video to find out.
Well, this is why we tell our students that their pricing shouldn't necessarily be based on how long they've been shooting, what kind of gear they have, or even like how much it costs them to run their business, since usually their time is like really the only kind of hard cost.
Instead, we tell our photography students as they're considering their pricing to look at their competition. See what other photographers of a similar skill level are selling their services for in their local market or in their region. So instead of looking at their own business as if it existed in a vacuum, we tell them to look at their entire local or regional market. So in a way, what we're doing when we tell them to do that is telling them to let supply and demand figure out their pricing. And by the way, we talk a little bit more about, actually a lot more about this in our pricing workshop. You can learn a little bit more about that up here as well.
But guys, that was a lot, so that's it for this week.
Thank you guys for watching. If you want more content like this delivered straight to your inbox, you can use the link in the description to sign up for our 4 Photographers newsletter.
And when you sign up, we will send you a copy of our ebook, 5 Essential Tips for Turning Your Side Hustle into a Full-Time Photography Business, just as a free gift.
And of course, please like, subscribe, all those good things to help us with the YouTube algorithms. And let us know if you have any questions in the comments.
See you next time.